Hello, and welcome to Diminishing Returns, the filthiest podcast in the world. This week, we're looking at John Waters' cult classic Pink Flamingos, starring the fabulous Divine. Join us as we take a brief foray into the world of trash cinema, featuring incest, cannibalism, rape, and as many eggs as you can eat. Enjoy the episode, you goddamn chicken fuckers.
We're talking about Pink Flamingos. Alan, this is your doing.
Yeah, this is my personal choice for our discussion. I'm a big fan of John Waters. He's still, I guess, a cult director. Definitely reached a bit of mainstream. Hairspray particularly was the one that did it. Never quite mainstream. And Pink Flamingos was the one that really brought him to people's attention.
He's not even a director anymore, is he? Doesn't he just sort of make cameos in weird, in cartoons and horror films?
I think he has said that if he could get funding,
yeah, I don't think there's a lot of money
wants
in what he does.
Yeah, I was looking up some of his more recent films, and it's sort of I don't think any of them really made their budget back. It's or maybe they do afterwards on DVD or whatever. I'm sure that there's a cult, but
Hairspray,
yeah, I think his last film was 2004.
Well, the thing is, in terms of Hairspray the musical, I don't know what deal he got on that or whatever, but he must be making a lot of money from that.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if he wanted to shoot a little film or something, he could do it. But if he wanted to shoot something a little bit bigger, maybe he'd need proper funding.
But now he is just sort of known as a media personality, really. I know he's on talk shows quite a bit. He does a one-man show. He's releasing memoirs.
I mean, my first exposure to him, and I feel like this might be the same for a lot of people. I think it might be the case for Calvin as well. But my first exposure to him was through The Simpsons, where he essentially played himself, but not quite. What was the name of his character?
John.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. And with this little mustache over his lip, looks exactly like John Waters, and he runs some kitschy, campy shop where you can get old 1950s memorabilia and that sort of thing.
And that's it. Then I started to notice him popping up elsewhere. He has that bizarre cameo in Seed of Chucky, if you've seen that.
Yes. He's a paparazzi or something, isn't he?
He's in one of the Jackass films, I think, or something to do with Jackass. Okay. He pops up in that.
Yeah.
I think that Johnny Knoxville was the star of his last film.
Yeah,
10
years
years
in
ago.
A Dirty Shame. I heard John Waters saying that he was talking about trying to get funding for his films and all that, and he said the reason that A Dirty Shame got made was because they had Johnny Knoxville. And in 2004, that was enough to get some funding to get a film made.
Wow.
Even then, got the money because of Johnny Knoxville, not because of John Waters. I guess he's not a bankable name, I guess. But he has certainly got a cult following and is pretty well respected as well. To say, particularly the earlier films are a trash cinema in that tradition, like Andy Warhol, all that sort of thing. But it does rise above, certainly for me, and it's why I like John Waters. It rises above that. There's a certain satirical level that works with John Waters that I never particularly found in Andy Warhol.
I found it interesting, actually, when I was looking through his filmography. If you look at pretty much every film he's made on IMDb, they all have a pretty decent rating of 7 point something out of 10, apart from Pink Flamingos, which is the famous one and has far more ratings. So I kind of feel like his fans have probably found him, rate his films rather highly, but then the few that have made it a bit more mainstream, people kind of think, oh Christ, and don't
But that's it. Pink Flamingos rises to the top of that pile for several reasons, but obviously it's become more seen by people who don't necessarily appreciate what it is, and you've seen it, you can understand why. But definitely the other thing that makes his work very appealing is it's really, really well respected by like queer theorists and LGBT community in general, because of the way it broke a lot of taboos, I guess, and John Waters in particular in his work steps out, and it does tackle a lot of issues like that, and particularly like in Hairspray deals with race.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, most of his films take on the viewpoint of the outsider or the oddball in society, but makes them the hero. So that is a kind of running theme in all his work, I think.
The only other film of his that I've seen apart from Pink Flamingos is Serial Mom.
Well, that is
one of his more mainstream ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much his most commercial period, like off the back of Hairspray, with a couple of films like Cry Baby with Johnny Depp. And I think even those films like Serial Mom, which is more mainstream, and you look at that compared to Pink Flamingos, and obviously it's different.
Oh God, yeah.
But there's a lot of tonally similar ideas there, and certainly you can tell it's a John Waters film. And he's an auteur filmmaker in that sense, that you look at a John Waters film and you know exactly who's made it.
Yeah.
So I find him really fascinating, frankly, and I like all his films. Even like Pink Flamingos, where the actual technical elements are quite shoddy in places. It seems to add to the impact of it, because it's designed with that in mind somehow. So I mean, what about you, Saul? Have you ever seen any of the John Waters stuff? Are you?
I mean, I've seen the musical film version of Hairspray, which I know he didn't have a huge deal of involvement in. If any, I don't really know to what extent he was involved in that. And I've seen Pink Flamingos now.
Did you watch it alone?
No.
Did you watch it alone?
I watched it with my girlfriend.
Okay, because I feel like when I first saw it, I went with me and Alan actually went together. There was a retrospective of John Waters' work at the BFI, and they were showing Pink Flamingos, and we were, it's a large cinema, packed crowd, that sort of thing.
And obviously,
which I think is
a friendly crowd. They knew, or at least most of them knew what they were getting themselves into. So I think it did make a big difference. Like, I've seen it, like I just watched it, on a small screen, and then so seeing it in the cinema, it does make a difference, and with a crowd that's really getting behind it and laughing. Yes,
that's where I was leading, because it makes such a difference sometimes. Seeing a film with an audience, and I think a film like this, because people laugh at different things, and there's some things that are sort of like, is that a joke?
I was about to say, I think an audience laugh track would have been pretty beneficial for me watching it, because I wasn't quite sure what
and certainly, I mean,
what
that's
was going on.
Where it achieved its cult success was in that midnight run. The midnight late night showings at theatres, kind of Rocky Horror, The Room, that kind of basis. It does fall into that category. You've got to kind of go with it to some extent. You've got to be in on the joke, or it's just not going to make sense.
It's I mean, it's one of those sort of more experience movies, I guess. A bit like The Room, the Tommy Wiseau. Like, I couldn't imagine sitting down and watching that by myself, but when you're with a bunch of people all watching it and interacting, it makes it fun. So what do you think of the film, Saul? Obviously, Alan's like a big fan. I'm curious to know what you thought. Like, because I mean, I really loved the experience of the film.
Can I ask before you sort of give that? Did you know what to expect? Because
no.
I know I picked this film, and part of the reason to pick the film was so that you would watch it. So I've been trying to get you to watch it for ages. Because I find it interesting to see what other people's opinions are.
I knew it was this vaguely controversial thing that John Waters made as a kind of provocative thing, and I knew about the infamous scene at the end where she eats dog shit. I think I'd seen a clip or two on some sort of like films you have to see before you die show or something ages ago, but I didn't really know anything about it whatsoever. I didn't know what to expect at all.
So what was your response then, I guess, is the next question.
I made viewing notes, and I thought for the sake of this, it might be nice if you read them out, Alan. If
I read them?
Yeah.
What's the benefit of me reading them? Is this this... Okay, it's not a long note. I'll read them out in order. I presume they're in order.
Okay.
Okay. Strange narrator. Oh Christ, it's like trash humpers. Bad acting or intentional? What the fuck is this? Why? Why, Alan? What the fuck is happening? The fuck? And that is the end of the notes.
I gave up making notes quite soon, to be honest.
Very specific.
That pretty much sums up my viewing experience of the film. I don't know. Initially, I was just sort of thinking like, "Oh God, I really don't know how much of this I can take." But then they started to develop a bit of a plot with the filthiest competition. It felt like a long time before like anything resembling a story began to begin. But once that began to take off, it was kind of like, okay, I can vaguely follow this. It was a weird film because every now and then there was a scene that I did really enjoy. I really enjoyed the bit. Was it a wedding at the end when the police turn up and then it goes a bit Benny Hill and then they end up like massacring them and eating them?
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that bit. And there were various things like that did really work for me. On one hand, there were other bits like the mother going on and on and on about eggs that I just kind of
I love that so much. That actress.
What is that?
What is up with her?
well, she's not an
like,
actress, is she? Let's put for a start.
And
well, that's just it, because I'm genuinely wondering if she's an actress or if there is just sort of something
No, she's just like
wrong.
That. Yeah. Well, I don't know what's wrong with her, but that's basically what she's like in real life. Yeah.
I also really enjoyed that flasher who tied a sausage to his dick. I found that quite amusing. But I don't know, just I mean the bit with the chicken early on put me off, to be honest. I felt really
that's the one bit that I can't really.
I felt really
I was
bad
like,
for that chicken, and then I
a
looked,
lot of people trip up on that.
I looked it up, and apparently the chicken died shooting that scene.
Yeah.
And I was just
They
kind of,
ate
it's
it
like it's
afterwards.
dying as you watch it. It's like that's what makes it so uncomfortable. Like I knew that going in, so that was just uncomfortable.
I'm
really.
not a big fan of. I think you can justify like killing an animal in the name of art. There was that guy who took that dog off the streets where there were loads of stray dogs in some country with lots of stray dogs, and just tied it up in an art gallery and let it starve to death. And it's kind of horrible on one hand, but on the other hand, he was basically highlighting that this is happening all around you on the streets and you're not paying attention to it. So maybe you'll pay attention to it if I bring one of them inside and make you look at it. I think there is a certain justification for something like that, but this felt more like that snake getting chopped up at the start of Friday the 13th or Cannibal Holocaust, if you've ever seen that. They just hack a tortoise to pieces, and it's just very unpleasant.
Yeah.
It's interesting because from what I've heard John Waters say about it, it never even occurred to them that might be considered cruel. It was just like, oh, let's throw a chicken in here as well. And they were like, well, we kill chickens all the time. What is I don't care.
That was the one part that struck me as legitimately quote unquote filthy. The fact that they ate it later on apparently sort of makes it a bit less awful, but I don't know, it's just because you can see the thing suffering. It's obviously not enjoying it. It's one thing to like quickly dispatch a chicken and eat it, but it's another to kind of. It's
funny that it doesn't bother me at all. I don't really. If it was a cat, I would have been horrified. But as a chicken, I just don't really care.
But there is a lot of, I guess, all the other shocking stuff. And a lot of it is shocking, but it's consenting people.
Well,
know what they're doing.
like I say, the chicken was genuinely the only thing that really shocked me and really made me kind of think, oh, I don't like this. Everything else, I mean, I guess there was the singing arsehole, whatever they call him.
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly expecting that, but I wasn't offended in any way by it. It was kind of like, okay, if you want to show that, then whatever. Like,
you got to remember, like, watching that in 1972. Yeah. I mean, like, I see shit like that on the internet every day. It's like, I think we're desensitized to it, but at the time, it was really out there.
Well, I found it interesting reading about that. The guy who played that role apparently wanted to remain anonymous, but like you can see his face clear as day in the film, so they don't credit him for the sake of his anonymity. But you can, like, if you know who he is, you'll recognize him when you watch it. It's bizarre.
I love how much of it is just quite obviously just John Waters' friends, and I know that the film was like
I
just,
think they
it was,
all
like,
are
done on
pretty much.
weekends or something, wasn't it? Like just weekends in Baltimore. And...
Yeah.
But it seems that John Waters liked to surround himself with slightly bizarre people, and
yeah.
Oh, I'm sure we can all relate to that.
but yeah, Divine is the obvious example of that. Obviously, she was his muse in many ways, until right, pretty much in every film he made until she died.
Yeah.
Mink Stole, who's one of the marbles, one of the bad guys, she's in every film he's made as well. He's very loyal to people who aren't good actors, and it works. He manages to make it work in his own way, I think. But I like that. I like the bad acting and the sort of trashy sets and all that. It seems to add to the charm. It all sort of comes together.
You know what amused me was the scene where they set the trailer on fire. They were clearly expecting this big fiery, like, and they chuck the thing in, and it just slowly, there's a little bit of fire, nothing very interesting. Then they cut, like, to, 2 hours later, and it's sort of on fire, but even then it's not that impressive.
I love it. They could probably only do it the once as
Yeah.
well. It was like, this is a one-take thing, we've got to do this.
They must have doused it in petrol. And it's bound to go up.
But yeah, even though it is quite, there isn't much of a plot at all. It is just scenes of disgusting, filthy, funny things. I think Ellen's right. I think it does have such a charm to it in a weird way, and I'm probably quite influenced by how great the viewing experience of it was.
I can't say I enjoyed the film at all, to be honest, other than the odd scene that was fairly interesting for me. But I do think that had I gone to one of these, midnight screenings and been throwing spoons at the screen and that sort of thing, then it would have been quite enjoyable. There were enough little moments in it for me that kind of made it enjoyable, but I don't know, I guess I didn't find a lot of it funny. It was very sporadic what actually worked for me in terms of comedy, and I don't know, at times it just felt unpleasant rather than like genuinely, filthy or offensive. It was just kind of like, right,
But
okay.
I agree, but it does it kind of with a knowing wink that kind of makes it all work for me. It knows what it's doing. It's not like going, oh, look how outrageous we are, aren't we amazing?
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of like going,
it wasn't the Human Centipede. Part.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't feel like it's doing it just to titillate. It feels like it's saying it's doing it to titillate, and that is kind of a point in itself. I know I'm getting a kind of bit up my own arse there, but there's something about John Waters' work that makes that kind of stuff work, which I haven't seen in other similar stuff. See, you'd be a lot better off with something like Serial Mom because it has got a proper story and it is much more mainstream. Yeah, like I've kind of thrown you in at the deep end here with Pink Flamingos.
Well, Pink Flamingos is very much like I say, it was on that list of films to see before you die. I do see it pop up on these, critics' lists of things to watch, and I suppose I can kind of see why.
It is an experience. Like, it is very... I can't say I've ever seen anything quite like it.
And like I say, it wasn't like this film was released as a proper film. It sort of gained an underground success and was playing in late night theatres for years and years. Yeah, cult. It's cult. It's your classic example of a cult film. And so you can't necessarily judge it in the same way as just your sort of standard mainstream films, right? When you're looking at it in terms of its legacy.
I saw, leading into our pitches, that they actually wrote a sequel to the film that never got produced.
Oh, really?
Do you not know about this? No. Well, apparently John Waters wrote it, and then I think Divine died, which was basically the reason why it just got completely...
Divine died about 15 years after Pink Flamingos was made, so it was definitely not an immediate sequel.
Oh, no, I think it was very much, let's go back and, maybe revisit
Divine
this.
died just after they did Hairspray, so Hairspray was the mainstream kind of breakthrough success that they hadn't before. This had given them enough cult success that they were getting a bit of money to produce films. That would have been perhaps a time to revisit it, but perhaps that was the plan. He was like, okay, now someone will give me some money, I can go and make a thing today.
Yeah, I've just looked it up. John Waters wrote a film titled Flamingos Forever, which was due to take place 15 years after the original film. So I assume it was 15 years after they made it that they were looking at making it.
Sense.
Yeah.
Apparently, the script for Flamingos Forever was published in John Waters' 1988 book Trash Trio. So I'd be so interested to.
Yeah, that'd be worth looking at.
I'd be very interested to read what his screenplays look like, because this film certainly seemed very I don't know, just thrown together in a lot of ways. Very, I don't know.
No, I agree.
But when we went to see the screening, it was from whatever the 98 release was, the 25th anniversary release was. And so they had John Waters, basically the DVD extras they played at the end of the film. John Waters was showing some deleted scenes and stuff like that and talking about them. Hearing John Waters talk about it is quite funny, because even he is just like, what the fuck was I doing? Like, what does this mean? Like, it's just like really kind of, even he can't really justify some of the things.
Can we talk about the dog shit bit?
Oh yeah.
I think that's probably, that must be the most famous scene in the film. When Divine,
that's the one part I knew about going in.
Divine eats the dog.
And it is really
shit.
Sums it up really, because it's not part of the plot. It's not even in the film. They just shove it on at the end. It is purely to get attention, isn't it?
I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's like, you know, they want to be the filthiest people alive.
Yeah, exactly.
And in order to, substantiate that, they need to do something incredibly filthy, and I can't think of anything else. Actually, because when I was writing my pitch, I was sort of thinking...
What about when she gives a blowjob to her own son? Is that...
Oh my god, that bit was horrible.
Is that not as bad for you?
That was just...
I guess because you know it's not really her son. It's it's okay.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Because like when it came to doing the writing up the pictures and thinking about like, what filthy thing could they do? It is like really hard to actually think of what is worse that isn't like, you know, paedophilia or something like that.
I got a bit of paedophilia in my pitch. Don't worry about it. It's just a passing mention.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we've already covered that with our Doctor No episode, so it's not exactly like new ground.
I just can't believe that it was all real. Like, it was real dog crap, and it's just Don't
you just love the bit where she kind of like looks at it with excited glee, and then like puts it in her mouth and starts gagging on it. It does feel very.
It's like
genuine.
the end of The Graduate. It's this immediate regret, just sort of grimace.
And then trying to put a brave face on it. But I really like that. I like that kind of honesty in it.
Did you hear the story about how apparently she phoned up the doctors after filming that and said she pretended to be a mother of a child and that had just eaten some dog excrement that they found in a park, and she just wanted to make sure the kid was going to be okay, and they were like, you know, worst case scenario is they get some like worms or something, but they should be fine.
Should have done that before, really.
Yeah, I know, about to say, like, you do that before you the dog shit. So, Sol, do you want to go first?
Okay, so my pitch sort of builds on a few things that we've been talking about. We meet Divine in 2016.
Oh.
Still running around proclaiming herself to be the filthiest person alive. Just going to ignore the fact that the actor's dead. I suppose we could recast or something.
So, but this would be like a 65-year-old Divine.
Older than that, even. About 72 or something.
She doesn't have a computer because she's old, but the Eggman is starting up a new online egg delivery service, and she decides to get a computer, get on the internet so that she can order some eggs. Her kids come over to like install the computer for her, and after she makes her first...
Hang on, but the kids are 58.
Right, a grandkid, great-grandkids come over.
And is the mum still alive?
Yes, yes, definitely. I don't know how old she'd be now, but she's still going on about
90.
Yeah. Imagine that though, a 90-year-old woman just shouting about eggs for like no reason.
in like the filthy cot. Like...
Yeah. So after she makes her first big egg order online, she decides to buy some egg enthusiast paraphernalia. She decides to look for an egg cup big enough to hold eggs for 2 people at once for when she has guests over. So she searches for 2 girls, 1 egg cup, clicks on the first result that pops up. We all know what she sees, and it makes her feel physically sick. She clicks on the recommended videos, and she's just sort of falls into a hole, like spending several days getting more and more depressed as she realizes that she isn't the filthiest person alive. She isn't even close. Even Chris Chandler is filthier. She basically suffers from not even a midlife crisis. What is it when you're that old? A 3/4 life crisis.
Even 3/4 generous.
a sort of deathbed crisis. You know, when old people like my granddad's just become a vegetarian, that sort of thing. And tries to clean up her act and basically go straight, you know. So there's probably a montage here of her just wandering around, upsetting like daycare parents and chemo patients who don't want anything to do with her as she wombles from job to job. And so eventually she decides to level the playing field a bit by basically taking herself away from the big leagues, entering herself into the small leagues. So she runs as a Republican candidate, knowing that politicians are under more public scrutiny and have to behave, thinking, well, you know, she can easily be the filthiest politician alive and settle for that. However, the American people embrace her, and each of her disgusting antics designed to offend, upset, and generally push people away from her have the bizarre effect of making her more popular. Against all odds, she's elected US president and struts into the White House, where the current or former president takes a big dump on the floor and she eats it, smiling at the camera, but hiding a grimace as it slowly dawns on her that the world's now doomed because the voting population are stupid and they're probably only a few years away from a third world war.
I do love, one of my favourite moments in Pink Flamingos is when, is it one of the reporters at the end is like, Mr. Vine, what are your political views? And she's like, kill everyone now. I love that.
I did like that. Yeah.
That's good. I actually touched on some similar things in mine, like the world of politics comes into mind as well. I think it's an obvious thing when you're talking about moral or kind of the appearance of moral standing.
Yeah.
The world of politics is a ripe place.
Right. Shall I get on with mine? Well,
what have you got for
mine
us, Calvin?
is set, I think maybe like 5-10 years after Pink Flamingos, so hopefully got all the same cast back. And Divine Crackers, Cotton and Edie are living. They're almost like reality TV stars before reality TV was a thing. So they're almost after the events of the first film, because they're the filthiest people alive, and people like were going crazy, like, oh, aren't they hilarious, all that kind of thing, treating them like celebrities. But the public have become bored of the family now because it's like, oh, for God's sake, here she is again. She's gonna like eat vomit or something. And Divine is finding it really hard to do anything shocking anymore that people haven't seen because she's done it all. And I kind of want to open the film with her doing something really horrible and shocking, and then just like no one's watching. But I couldn't think of what it could possibly be. So it's got to be something really. Like setting fire to a baby or something like that, like something really horrible. So they need to do something. They need to do a big stunt to get noticed again, which they plan to do at the upcoming Convention of Filthy People, which is going to be held in London. Divine and the family are regulars at the convention, and they're expecting the car to arrive to take them to the airport, but it doesn't show up. And instead the egg man arrives with a box, and in the box is something horrific. And from whatever that is, Divine figures out that they've actually been snubbed from the Convention of Filthy People by her. She'll have a new rival. I want it to be played by Patty Hearst, who is, I know that she's a John Waters regular, and she was like, well, she got like kidnapped and then robbed a bank or something, or she's like
in real life.
Yeah, she's like a real life criminal. She went to prison for, and I think one of the presidents had like pardoned her or something, or because she made the case.
Basically, it's your classic Stockholm syndrome kind of case.
Yeah,
she was kidnapped by this political organisation, and then, well, as she claims, they brainwashed her, and so when it looked like she was taking part in a bank robbery, she was actually being forced to do it. It's quite an interesting story, Sol. You'll have to read the Wikipedia page or something. It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
And apparently she's really good friends with John Waters now, because she's in like all of his films after a certain point, I think. I know she pops up in Serial Mom. So I want her. And the bulk of the film is really just going to be the family making their own way to London in order to get to the convention. So it's a bit of a road trip sort of thing, and it's just really an excuse to get those characters into situations like, oh, they're on an aeroplane and having some culture clashing stuff in England.
No, I like that. Taking them out of Baltimore.
Yeah, taking them out of Baltimore, so I don't know how much of that would work for John Waters.
If the idea is exporting Baltimore,
You film it in Baltimore
around the world, and they can still film it there and just put a Beefeater hat on.
Yeah, you
someone.
film it there and just have like a really, a badly made model of Tower of London in the background.
The story would eventually culminate at the convention, and we have lots of room for bizarre stuff here, so whoever has a friend who can do something like the singing arsehole, it's like, yep, get them in. And I just sort of want to end the film with Divine killing everyone at the convention, and that's it. That's the end. What can you do to like, up the ante from eating shit? Like, if you got a topic for a sequel,
Mix it in with other bodily fluids and a bowl.
Ah, there we go. That's it. Yeah, a cocktail of like poo,
Semen.
piss, semen.
Basically,
vomit.
anything that you'd see in
Tears.
Japanese porn.
I was a bit disappointed with the lack of pink flamingos in the film, actually. Just so maybe you could like just have him killing a pink flamingo on screen for no reason. If you're looking for
Oh, that would up the ante from the previous one. Like, people have sex with a flamingo in the middle of them.
That's it. They said everyone was moaning about the chicken, so like the whole film is just him like killing birds for no reason whatsoever.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
There is a pink flamingo, isn't there, in the film on someone's in front of the trailer or something? Yeah,
It's in front of the trailer.
lawn.
it's a good name for a film. That I've got to say, it's very much. It's one of those very enigmatic sort of names, and it evokes the right kind of kitschy, like trashy.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I couldn't come up with a good title for mine because, like I say, it's such an arbitrary sort of title, really.
So, Alan, what's your pitch?
So my pitch is like I'm the John Waters fan of the group, I guess. So I did really want to do a genuine kind of straight down the line sequel and try and capture the John Waters feel. I just really wanted to have a genuine crack at it. So that's what I tried to do. I think the ending of the Pink Flamingos sets up a sequel pretty obviously, because you've got Divine, Cotton and Crackers. They're basically walking off into the sunset to new adventure. I've got Divine along with Cotton and Crackers. They've set up home at little suburbs in the Midwest, probably Baltimore, probably. But it's your classic Americana suburb, well kept lawns, white picket fences, all that sort of thing. So we set up with a bit of a false opening. You got Divine is the perfect suburban housewife. She's seeing off her son. He's leaving for a day at the factory where he stands for 8 hours at a conveyor belt putting food into plastic trays. Cotton's working at a salon and she just chit chats with the customers as she washes their hair. It's your classic suburban life. On the lawn and then on the walls and all sort of stuff like that. There's banners and posters that say "Re-elect Mayor Milstead," and you got this guy is obviously running for re-election.
Who would play him?
I've got him being played by Divine. Dressed as a man, obviously. So that's the double role. So we see Divine on her daily chores, chatting with women folk at the supermarket. Very Stepford Wives kind of thing going on. She goes home and cooks and cleans, and when the children return home, they sit at the table. They're starting to eat dinner, and Divine breaks down into tears. So they ask what's wrong. She becomes hysterical and says that she can't live this lie anymore and she must be filthy again. So we jump to the next day and they all get into it. And so we have a bit of a montage of them like becoming filthy again. So Cotton, she's at the salon. She pours some sort of chemical into the shampoo and everyone goes bald. Everyone loses their hair every time they wash their hair. Crackers is working at the factory. He's preparing these like ready meals, but he just takes a single pubic hair and places it in each container on top of the food. and And then we see Divine walking around the streets, and she's like going on all the posters of Mayor Milstead and like drawing like on a Hitler moustache or a giant spunking cock over his face or that sort of thing. So then we cut to Mayor Milstead. Now he's in a crisis meeting with his campaign advisor. You probably have played by Mink Stoll, just because she's got to be in it somewhere. Get a bit of exposition about this character, and we find out that he's a local like chicken magnate, and he owns a fast food franchise called Baltimore Fried Chicken. But he's really portrayed as a grotesque. You know, he's a big fat man. He's always eating and just sort of generally disgusting. I don't know if you guys have actually seen Hairspray, the original.
No, I've only seen the remake.
Yeah, I've only seen the
musical version.
Yeah.
In that, Divine plays the mother.
I was wondering about that, actually. I was going to ask you, because, John Travolta plays the mother in the remake.
Well, that's why they have a man
it's
playing
an odd thing,
basically. Yeah, it's a tradition.
And Harvey Fierstein played the role when it was on stage originally.
Oh, right.
He's always a man.
Michael Ball did it for a while, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. Harvey Fierstein, I can't see. But
yeah, in that, Divine plays this kind of put-upon housewife in that. But then she also plays the boss of the TV station as a man. So it's basically, I'm taking that same kind of idea, and he's quite a grotesque man as well. I mean, Divine was a big fat guy, not an attractive person. So when actually just dressed normally as a man with like a bald head, it's pretty unattractive. So we got Mayor Milstead. So he's very unhappy with this sudden onslaught upon his character. All his posters are being defaced, and his wife's lost all her hair. He's not happy about that. So he demands that they find the people who are responsible. And just as he's saying this, he takes another mouthful of food before looking disgusted and then pulling a pube out of his mouth. The basic setup for the plot is Divine decides to run for mayor on a platform of filth politics with the tagline "Kill everyone now." And because Milstead runs like chicken farms and like this fast food chicken thing, so there's a little side gag wherever he goes, he's just always bothered by protesters who are rallying against cruelty to chickens. Doesn't really go anywhere. It's just a bit of a side gag.
Finger up to the people who complained about the first film.
We can do montage again. Just got Divine. She's canvassing the public. She's knocking door to door. I imagine her like wearing a huge dress made out of an American flag. And then if they don't agree with her policies, she like takes a shit on the lawn. And then at one point we see her giving a speech, and she says, "Vote for me. All you do is put your X in the box." And then you hear someone say, "Did somebody say eggs?" And then it's Miss Edie, and we have a bit of a reunion with the mother, and because she went off with the Eggman in the original, so she's sort of been away for a while. Milstead, Mayor Milstead, he's running on like a conservative, moral high ground kind of platform, so he's railing against the filth of Divine and her family. But Divine sends crackers to do some snooping. He soon finds dirt on their opponent. Not only does this guy put secret chemical in his chicken that makes you crave it fortnightly, he also puts in something that makes black people sterile, so that he can wipe out what he refers to as the Negro. So we find out that Mayor Milstead is in fact, a terrible person. I also thought they could find him like sleeping with a child prostitute played by Jodie Foster, because would have been about the right era. So put that in there. So now they have all this filth on him, all this dirt on him. They go to one of his battery farms where he's working, and they're going to go confront him. He has preempted them, and he's lured in Miss Edie with the promise of all the eggs she can eat. And then he reveals that he has a captive in a large cage in the middle of the battery farm where she's surrounded by chickens. So she's basically just another huge chicken in this battery farm. However, Divine is so aroused by this man's despicable, scheming nature that she immediately leaps on him and starts to have aggressive sex with him. Now, they are both played by the same actor, so
how do you
I'm
film
not sure
that?
exactly how it's going to work. A lot of things to work around there. But anyway, it happens. They're going on it. So while they're rolling around in the hay, Cotton and Crackers free Miss Edie, and then just as they're about to escape, Milstead reaches climax and immediately has a massive heart attack and drops dead. They leave, but first they release all the chickens, who immediately flock to the corpse and start pecking him to bits. With no opponent, Divine runs in the election and becomes mayor, and in her acceptance speech she announces her plan to become the first female president. And that is the end of the film.
Nice. Setting up the third one.
Exactly. So yeah, that was my attempt to actually do a genuine kind of John Waters-esque film, like that was true to the original.
Yeah,
I like that.
mean, yeah, sounds like it
Being
yeah.
When you're talking about like where do you go, like how do you make it more filthy, it was like exactly like what do you do?
Yeah.
But I kind of thought I'll have someone having sex with themselves, essentially. Maybe that's something new, isn't it?
I guess politics is like, that is sort of like the perfect place for Divine to go, isn't it?
Yeah, but I liked it where you went as well, Calvin, like reality TV. It's like in terms of like where do you go to try and be if you've got nothing to offer except shock value?
Yeah.
Politics or reality television.
I nearly went down the reality TV route myself as well, actually. I mean, well, with it being a thinly veiled allusion to Trump, it kind of makes sense. But
and the internet in general, like you were saying, like
yeah.
No longer, if you're going to be shocking like that, you'd have to do it on the internet now, wouldn't you? You become you become internet famous.
It was in Souls. It was your the contrivance of the opening to get to the point where she would Google for 2 girls, 1 cup and find it about all the eggs. I really enjoyed that.
I worked backwards from the like we were discussing in From Russia with Love.
Yes.
With the with Q's gadgets, it was the same thing. For those of you listening, so that's everyone other than Calvin and Alan. Yeah, if you're a big fan of cinema and all that, Pink Flamingos is one of these classics that you probably should watch, and I recommend watching to contextualize cinema a bit more. If you're one of our more casual film-going listeners, then this is a film you might want to give a pass on. Just to warn you, it's probably not for more mainstream consumption.
I should have got my mum to watch it and then made her report.
Oh, that would have been
amazing.
Yeah.
So those were our ideas for a sequel to Pink Flamingos. I do heartily recommend the film, even if it's just for shock value. There's a pretty good chance you've never seen anything like it. And we do like to hear your thoughts on the films and our pictures, so please visit us on Facebook, where we are Diminishing Returns Podcast. And spread the word to your friends about this awesome podcast that you're always listening to. Next week, we're going to the complete opposite end of the scale with the offensively heteronormative Bridget Jones's Diary.